We have with us Dr. Jong Choi, who is an academic at Yonsei University, Cochav Elkayam-Levy, who chaired the commission on the October 7th crimes by Hamas against women, children, and families. Maryam, Kamalmaz, the director for Missing Persons Affairs for the Syrian Emergency Task Force. Dr. David Smolansky, who is the senior advisor to the Nobel Peace Prize laureate 2025, Maria Corina Machado, whom I think everyone knows is the candidate who won the election in Venezuela but was denied the victory. And last but not least, Senator John Hoeven, senator from North Dakota. And I was trying to discover the big difference, and then I thought, okay, it's South Dakota and North Dakota. I get it. I'm going to ask you all the question that is the theme of this panel, and you all heard Justice Abella talk about differences and how equality is, in fact, a result of differences. Let me start with you, Jong. What does the phrase democracy defends difference mean to you?
It means diversity, I guess. I think that why and how democracy is stronger than any forms of political institution and practices that we had throughout history is that democracy accommodates diversity. I'm not a democracy expert. I'm a international politics scholar as well as practitioner. And we talked about how Iran and North Korea and other authoritarian regimes are bad in a sense that they sort of spoil and threaten our democratic institution. But when I worked in the government as a vice foreign minister of South Korea, I directly dealt with North Korea and also directly dealt and negotiated with IRGC in Iran when they hijacked our Korean tanker ship. But all in all, what I realized is that every time we interact directly with all this authoritarian regime is that they lack innovation. They lack ideas. They only promote idea of what they believe in. And therefore, they're not diverse enough. I think that democracy that we have and we tend to enjoy and take it for granted is because diverse. I come from a country so-called South Korea, and democracy means just more than political institution, because with all your help, back in 1950, we defended our democracy from the aggression of North Korea under the banner of the United Nations. We survived 2 long military dictatorship in our country. Our citizens rose, our students shed their blood on the streets, and also we impeached 2 presidents that abused the Constitution that we built throughout our struggle against democracy. And in it, we defended it, our diversity in democracy. We still have very high chance of war going on with North Korea. DMZ is right there, 40 kilometers north of South Korea. But we know that we are a lot stronger than North Korea. We know that we are much more innovative than China because at the end of the day, we can say we are much more accommodating to the new ideas. We are much more flexible. And I think that the theme of this panel is essentially asking a very simple question. How much are we willing to accommodate a new idea in the form of democracy? Recently, not too long ago, our delusional president attempted overthrowing the constitutional order in the name of martial law. Believe that there shouldn't be a differences in our democracy because anyone criticized the incumbent government, he basically labeled it as enemy of the states. the opposition party, and liberal parties as well. And our citizens protested in the name of the Revolution of Light. Our National Assembly impeached him, and our Constitutional Court obviously ruled that impeachment, and therefore we had an election. So what makes democracy much more resilient is diversity itself. So I think that democracy defends differences.
That's a great answer. That's a great answer. Cochav, you come from a country that is riven with differences right now. What does democracy defending difference mean to you?
I think it's an excellent question. And I was thinking the first thing that came to mind was very simple: the leadership of women and the commitment to our children. This is the way for me to see, and for us as democracies, to see beyond differences, and I'll explain. Yitzhak Rabin wrote in this speech about defending differences, he wrote, "No two people are alike, and every country has its own laws, cultures, and traditions." And he talks about the 1% that unites us, the commitment to the sanity of life. And I grew up in Lod. It's a city in Israel where Muslims and Jews live side by side. Sounds like something from my imagination, but it is the reality. This was the reality of how I grew up. I didn't see difference. I saw us growing up together, our children together in the same preschools. I didn't realize as a child that difference matters. And I think that's the essence of it. I saw coexistence as a second nature. And then I grew up, and one of the first things I did as a student at Penn Law is to write about the chance of peace. And I found that Muslim women and Jewish women together have far more understandings about how to bring peace, far deeper commitment to the future of our children. I feel that women see more vividly the opportunity for peace, the possibility for a different future for our children. So I think to be able to see beyond differences, democracies have to have women in leadership, especially national security circles. For the Middle East, to be able to see a future beyond the ongoing violence, we have to have women in leadership. We all see together the commitment to our children this way. So.
You know, it's a really, really interesting answer because Jong, you said the diversity, seeing the diversity is how democracies defend difference, and Cochav just said when the differences become invisible is how democracies defend. So there's not one answer to this question. Maryam, you have lived through a period of what one can only say brutal dictatorship in Syria. And the country is evolving. As a Syrian, how do you think, how do you understand that phrase, democracy defends difference?
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge that this is the first year that Halifax, that Syria is free.
Welcome.
60, yes. And for us to be present here at Halifax celebrating this remarkable achievement is amazing. 60 years of oppression, of tortures and killings and mass murders and enforced disappearances, and not being able to speak your mind or be able to have a political opinion has come to an end. There are nearly 1 million that are missing in Syria, and one in those millions happens to be my father. I'm actually a Syrian American, and my father is a psychotherapist who specializes in trauma. He used to travel the world and go to war-torn areas and treat those that had suffered the worst forms of trauma, Whether it was war or natural disasters, he was there in Bosnia, in Kosovo, in Indonesia after the tsunami, and even in New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina. The latest was in Lebanon. He had set up his institute, the International Institute for Psychosocial Development in Lebanon, where he treated Syrian refugees. His door was open to everyone that needed any sort of help. He did not specify any sort of religious or specific ethnicities. It was open to everyone. And he avoided politics, knowing that it could risk his work. In February 14, 2017, he was lured into the country, believing that he was going to meet with doctors and possibly open a branch of his institute in Syria. He drove in legally without any issues from Lebanon into Syria, arrived at a family member's house in Damascus, slept the night, called my mom, told her, I've arrived, I'm safe, all is well, I'll call you back later. My mom, of course, knowing that he's in Syria, she panicked a lot, and I had to reassure her, he'll be fine, don't worry. Well, unfortunately, it was the next morning that he never called back, and we never heard from him. And then the doctor started calling us, the one that was waiting for my father, saying, have you heard from him? Has there been any news? And we were like, no, he's not with you. And he said, no, it's been over 8 hours, and we're supposed to meet 8 hours ago, and he hasn't arrived yet. Unfortunately, we learned from the driver that was with my father that he was stopped at a temporary checkpoint that was set up to kidnap him. He was kidnapped, disappeared, and we were thrown into this world of the unknown. Where is he? How is he? There were so many questions. Living in the United States, in democracy, gave us the opportunity to speak out, something that Syrians feared. Being a Syrian American family, we had the ability to go on the news and to plead for the president to take on his case and to do all that he can to bring my father home. With the help of Muaz Mustafa, who's been working on Syria for the past 15 years, and we owe him a great applause for all that he's done for Syria and liberating Syria. We were the only Syrian American family to be public. Of course, it didn't come without a price. The price was we would never be able to go to Syria again, which means my mother's family, my grandmother, would never see their siblings or any of their loved ones again in Syria. But the responsibility was more important that we represented the missing and spoke out than to shy away and stay in fear. We decided to speak out, and we went on every news channel and spoke about my father's disappearance. Luckily, we were heard by President Trump at that time, and our story was picked up by the Special Presidential Envoy for Hostage Affairs, again, something that democracy has helped create for families of those that have loved ones that are hostages and wrongfully detained. And throughout the years of us working and advocating for my father, we learned in May of 2024 that he had unfortunately passed within the Syrian prisons. It's okay. There's a quote that I'd like to say that a wise man, who happens to be my father, said, and actually comes into relevance with this specific theme. The sign of a civilized society is how well they care for their weakest members. And so I say, the way democracy should be is those that care for their weakest. Who are the weakest? It's those that are the elderly, the ethnic and religious minorities, those that differ in their opinion and speak out. For journalists, for activists, for anybody that has difference of opinions, to have the ability to be able to have their mind open up and speak without fear of, as they say in Syria, the walls have ears, without the fear of the walls having ears. And so I say that democracy does defend differences in this area, and it was a democracy who raised the hostage and wrongful detainee flag for a Muslim Syrian American above the White House, the State Department, and the Capitol on June 11th, 2024. It was a democracy that told our family, if you need counseling, any help, anything you need, we are here to support you. It was a democracy that continued to push for accountability and justice for the atrocities that have happened. And I have a lot of hope in Syria, and hearing from the Syrian president himself that he wishes for unity, peace, and building a strong country based off of democracy. And he allows those that differ in their opinion to speak their mind. In fact, he encourages it. He'd like to know where he is standing wrong so he can correct himself. So I say Syria is heading in the right direction for a stable, strong democracy.
Thank you so much, Maryam. So David, Venezuela is on everybody's mind right now at a time of great uncertainty where people are, to put it mildly, worrying about a use of force which could make the life of Venezuelans much worse because it would not succeed. On the other hand, there was an election that was unlawfully stolen from the winner. What does the phrase democracy means, defends, difference? What does that mean to you?
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's a real honor to be here at Halifax again. I would like to put a bit of context of what was a country that really had a democracy and defend differences. Venezuela was one of the most stable and prosperous democracies during the second half of the 20th century. We have Jews and Muslims living one by side. We had, in decades where 70% of the nations in Latin America were under dictatorships and conflicts, 4 million migrants went to Venezuela. They found jobs, opportunities. We had liberties, we have strong institutions, we have free media. And then everything changed since this century began. And unfortunately, Venezuela has become a landmark on how democracy is used to destroy democracy. That's what happened in Venezuela. And how those differences disappear when someone in power tries to smash everyone who thinks differently. First time that I came to Halifax was in 2014. I was a young elected mayor, and I had the opportunity to go back to Venezuela. 11 years after, I'm here in exile with 3 illegal arrest warrants and separated from my family. But it's not about me. It's about a whole nation. In that moment, the first time that I came to Halifax, we were only 200,000 Venezuelans living overseas. We were famous to be only in Miami. Now we're almost 9 million migrants and refugees. That's the whole population of Arizona. That's twice Croatia. That's almost the same size of Hungary or Portugal. Since the first time I came to Halifax to now, the regime has ordered the killings of 19,000 Venezuelans, and more than 25,000 people have been illegally detained. That's how you smashed people who think differently. And obviously what happened last year. We won an election last year, and this is not rhetoric. We proved we won with voting tallies 70-30. The person who has led this democratic movement won the Nobel Peace Prize, Maria Corina Machado, recently. The regime change already happened in Venezuela. We decided regime change. And Maduro had the opportunity to abandon power before the election last year, during the election, and days after the election. I was part of those conversations. I was close to those conversations. And his reaction was to use brutal force to kidnap, disappear, and illegally detain more than 2,300 innocent Venezuelans. And here we are trying to defend what people expressed last year. And I hope next year when I come back to Halifax, I can say the same as you just said, that Venezuela will be free.
Thank you, David. Senator, you're a senator in the United States and an active member of the Senate. What does democracy defend difference mean to you right now?
I think that the title of this segment sums it up. Democracies defend differences. I mean, it's self-explanatory. First, I want to thank Senator Shaheen for leading our delegation. We have a tremendous group. There's 8 of us. And I really appreciate, it's a bipartisan delegation, and I appreciate all of them. They're tremendous people, and it's an honor and a privilege to work with them. And I thought, you know, you saw how thoughtful and informed Senator Shaheen's comments were at the outset. But I'm going to bring this from a little bit different place in that I grew up in North Dakota, 50 miles from the Canadian border. We bordered Saskatchewan and Manitoba. I was governor for 10 years. I worked with a number of premiers. Gary Dewar, who was a premier of Manitoba for a long time, later became the Canadian ambassador, a good friend. I'm a conservative. He's a member of the Liberal Party, but we got along fantastic. And so I saw democracy growing up as Canada was the same as the United States. Man, it was easier to get into Canada than it was to get into South Dakota, Mike Rounds, I tell you.
I told you so.
Yeah, I mean, right. I mean, I don't even think they checked ID back then. The lake we went to, half in North Dakota, or in the United States, half in Canada. So if you drove your boat across the lake to somebody's lake house on the other side, you just traveled to another country. But the reality is what we're seeing in the world today, and I bring a little different perspective. Most of our delegation are Senate Armed Services, so they authorize, you know, the military programs we have. I'm Defense Appropriations, so we fund them. So we have to come up with enough money to authorize or to fund what they authorize, and it ain't easy, because there's always more things we should be doing than we have the resources to do. Which brings me to my point. Democracies defend differences. So the differences are the ability we have freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of assembly, freedom to believe what we want, to do what we want, to go where we want, right? That comes with the democracy, the people being in power, not an autocrat. And in today's challenging and dangerous world, the democracies of the world must band together and must work together to make sure that we that we remain free, and that the autocratic countries, whether you want to talk about China or Russia or North Korea or Iran, like we've talked about, and look at or the terrorist organizations where autocrats try to impose their will on we, the people, the free societies. And so I bring up that point about defense appropriations because whether we're working with NATO, whether we're working in the Indo-Pacific region, anywhere in the world, we have to band together and have the resources to be the arsenal of democracy writ large worldwide. Not just the arsenal of democracy for our individual country, but together the beacon of liberty and freedom through strength, through the military ability to defend ourselves and our allies. Senator Jerry Moran from Kansas and myself got a resolution from 100 senators in the United States, and about 2 to 3 weeks went to Israel after the attack by Hamas and presented that resolution of support after those horrific attacks. We've talked about Ukraine today. We've talked about what's going on with Maduro in Venezuela. We, the democracies, must band together and support each other to make sure that we remain free, and that whatever autocratic despot wants to impose his or her will on freedom-loving democracies, that we stand together and we prevent it.
Okay, this is a lightning round, and then we're going to the audience, so a one-sentence answer. If you were Zelensky, would you accept the ultimatum?
Well.
Jong. Yes or no?
Lightning round.
You got me off the guard.
I know. Yes or no?
I guess no seems to be an answer.
No is the answer. Cochav, would you accept the ultimatum? Zelensky was given until Thursday by President Trump to accept a peace deal. Would you accept or not? No. No. Maryam, would you accept?
I don't have enough knowledge about this area to
Okay,
answer.
we'll let you pass.
Yeah.
David, would you accept?
Well, we're the pro-democracy movement in Venezuela with Ukrainians, and we support them. Yeah.
And Senator, would you accept?
We just actually met with some of the members of the Ukrainian Assembly. I think what you're going to see is a negotiation. And I think this is part of getting to a negotiation. But no, I don't think that this is obviously what Zelensky or Ukraine are going to accept. I think the real issue is what is their response going to be, and then where do we go from there?
Okay. Questions? I'm looking, Peter, we have 6 minutes. Okay, where's the microphones and where are the hands? Oh, I see a hand right there. Yes, great. Just tell us who you are.
Sure. My name is Mark Goldberg. I'm a journalist. I run Global Dispatches, which is a website and a podcast. A question for David. You said that the regime change has happened. It just hasn't been enforced yet. So would you support an American military action in Venezuela to enforce the election results as you see it?
Well, I think it's important that finally the elephant in the room in Venezuela has been addressed. Again, first time I came to Halifax, I remember I was speaking about drug trafficking in Venezuela. It was like alone in an off-the-record session. And even though Venezuela has the largest oil reserve in the world, today drug trafficking generates to Maduro more money than oil. Only last year, $8.4 billion got Maduro from drug trafficking according to international transparency. So when a regime commits the crimes that they are committing, when they are committing crimes that goes beyond our border, when they have given every option to abandon power, and when they have lost, they lost the election last year, I think that actions that cut the money flows that come from drug trafficking is very, very important in this moment, because that weakens the regime and they are creating tensions and mistrust among the high-ranking officials of the regime.
Okay. Where's Nancy? Right over there. There's one of our 15 by 15. Do you see? Great. Okay.
Hello, I'm Nicolas Castillo from Ecuador again. I'm Ecuadorian, and I'm fairly scared of the political thing that is happening now in Ecuador. And what do you think about this that I call Chavist-friendly political parties that are also participating in these elections in Ecuador, and the increasing of narco-traffic in our country?
Yes.
So that's a question about how legitimate, how big, wide is the spectrum for political parties? How good are we at dealing with different perspectives across the political spectrum?
Well, first of all, we're very grateful with Ecuadorians that have received almost 600,000 Venezuelans that have led dictatorship, that have led a nation that doesn't have a democracy. And obviously it is concerning because for over 20 years, the Chavismo movement, now Maduro movement, obviously is financing different political parties and organizations in Latin America that basically have as a goal to weaken democracies in our region. Now, Latin America had, as I said earlier, a lot of dictatorships years ago. Now we have 3, Cuba, Nicaragua, and Venezuela. And we are working hard to have, for the first time, the Americas with no dictatorship. So this is important to be denounced because that's part of the threat that this regime represents, financing those movements. And by the way, that money comes from illicit economic activities such as drug trafficking, gold mining, and in the case of Venezuela, also human trafficking, because more than 90% of the women, more than 90% of the people that have been victims of human trafficking are women, and some of them are even teenagers.
Time for one more quick question. Yes, go ahead.
Okay. My name is Sharvan Ibish. I'm director of Bahar Organization Syria. So 2025, it was the failure of one of the most dictatorship over the world, Bashar Assad, who fled to Russia. So we are wondering that this regime that killed 1 million Syrians, how the Democrats over the world can support the transition in Syria? Thank you.
That's a great question. And, both Cochav and Maryam come from societies that were traumatized by the atrocities and the investigations. So Maryam, last comment to you, because I'm watching the clock. How does Syria move forward given the violence between communities in Syria that has been so much a part of modern history?
Well, the Syrian president has made it very clear that he wants unity and peace within the country, and they are working as
There's already
much
fighting.
as there's a lot of fighting that they are trying their mighty best to bring unity between these different areas. So I think after war and after a regime is overthrown, there tends to be a lot historically that happens after a regime is overthrown. So many different groups that still have so much hate towards each other. Regardless, Syria and the Syrian president want to see an end, and they want an end to any sort of fighting, any sort of killing and harm. They want unity and they want peace, and he's repeated it so many times. So regardless of the situation that's happening now, it's just unfortunately due to the overthrow of the regime is going to happen.
So I'm mindful of the clock, but I will say there's a complicated relationship between democracy at home and what governments do with their neighbors. And it's not the old argument that democracies don't fight each other, because they actually fight lots of other people. So it is, I think, an important point that each of the panelists made in a different way, that you learn skills when you live in a society where you have to deal with differences. You learn to listen harder than when there are not differences. You learn to make more space, which is not easy. It's hard work. Somebody said, it's Timothy Snyder who just said to me, democracy isn't, we do democracy every day. And when we do democracy every day, we develop all these skills. I think when we have a former Minister of Defense with us, Bill Blair, and our current Minister, David McGuinty, I think when we do those skills, we get better at dealing with other countries and accommodating a broader spectrum of differences. So yes, we need to be prepared, but we need to work harder at developing those skills as well. And that comes when we do democracy and we remember how awful, awful, awful the alternative is. It's scarred at least 3, if not 4 of you. Thank you all very much.